This rebrand that we did, it's a little edgy and it's so much closer to roots and just who we are. As a company, we're fun-loving, take chances and risks and live a little. I got super emotional because as I was telling you about my dad was over here sneaking us Oreos as my mom was making us liver. He would say to us, sometimes you got to live a little. Live a little tagline. It was very emotional for me because I felt like it was this life journey all coming together in a way that it should, which was really cool.
Welcome back to the Perfect Bite podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Perkins. I have been a self-proclaimed dessert girl many times on this podcast, and I do believe my actual vices are butter and sugar. There's just something so special about either baking or sharing a sweet treat with others, or just enjoying by yourself. And what's better when there is a sweet treat that combines multiple desserts into one, so you don't even have to choose. I'm so excited to chat with another Midwestern sweet tooth gal who said, you can have it all. Please welcome founder and CEO of Killer Brownies, Chimene Mayne-Ross. Chimene, hello.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you so much. It's very exciting to be able to spend this time with you.
Oh,
Thank you for
same
having me.
here.
Yeah.
I'm sure you hear this multiple times a week, but you have the most beautiful name.
Oh, thank you. Usually it's how do you pronounce that?
Right.
But thank you. Yeah. Every conversation starts with that. I have a special place in my heart for people with unusual names. So I usually say, no, tell me how to say it. I want to know how to say it. So,
Right,
yeah.
right. I mean, and then for me, if you Google me, there's a million Sarah Perkinses. But I love that we're going to talk today about something that's also very uncommon, which is the Killer Brownies and just how they came about and how they're continuing to grow. I need to try one. They look incredibly delicious.
Well, we need to send one right over. Oh, for sure.
And I can also go to all the nationwide retailers you've got too. So don't worry. But I always really love to start all the way at the beginning. So tell us when you first fell in love with food. What was eating like growing up in your household? Were you always a kid with a sweet tooth too?
You know what? Food and the food industry was very much a part of my life. In my earliest memories, food and family were synonymous. I think a lot of people say that, but actually my family food history dates all the way back to the 1940s because my
Wow.
grandfather started a retail grocery store that my dad ended up taking over in the early 1970s. I was one of 6 kids. And a very interesting story about my parents. My mom was actually way ahead of her time as kind of a health nut. And we still tease her today, but I mean, we had all home cooked meals. We had a dinner around the table every night. But my mom, literally an after school snack was liver and onions. She wanted us to eat healthy. So we were kids who were exposed to a lot of different culinary experiences from a very young age. And we tease her that our first introduction to chocolate was carob. I don't know if you've ever had carob, but it's actually not chocolate. And then
No.
when my sister teases her that the first time she had chocolate, she was like, you've been lying to us all this time. But, my mom wanted us to be healthy. And she still to this day, she was in her 80s. She's very healthy, very active. And so we had that exposure from my mom. And that's always been an important part of my personal story and even our story today with business. And then my dad, on the other hand, was a diehard sweet fanatic, and he was a late in life child. So he had 4 older sisters, and their grandmother, who loved to bake, also lived with them. So he was really spoiled with a lot of attention and love and also a lot of sweet treats. So he was the one sneaking us Oreos late at night after liver and onions. So I just had this really interesting kind of like what brought food together in my family and interesting perspective of my parents. Is so funny. They're still the same way today. My mom is still the one making healthy foods. My dad is still the one sneaking sweet treats. So that is very much a part of what our influence was at a young age.
And then when you hear that and you end up hearing your story, it's such a through line for you. You had such a balance. Of course, we should all be focused on taking care of ourselves, eating healthy. I mean, liver and onions, you were doing the charcuterie craze at an early age. You were just being fancier than everyone with your after school snack. And then when we think about it again, especially anytime I talk to someone in a Midwestern state, like we do just love those like big, hearty, like
Yeah.
you fill you from the inside out pastries and desserts.
Oh,
And it
yeah.
is such a special way to show love to each other.
Yeah. That's so, so true. And food, I think that's true for all of us, really. Like,
Yes.
think of all the memories that we have. All of our great memories are associated with
Oh,
food.
yeah.
There's
Oh,
always
yeah.
food around, or a treat around, or a sweet around, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's something that's just heightening your everyday. And
Yeah.
that's why I started this podcast. And the question we get to at the end always brings out everyone's favorite memories.
Yeah.
So, speaking of the family retail business, your family owned Dorothy Lane Market, which was in Dayton. So, specialty grocer, very the gourmet grocer that we might find these days. I'm curious if growing up in the retail business and food, it almost made you rebel and say, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to go down the path that everyone else has.
I was always so proud of what my family built. I always thought it was the coolest thing that my dad owned a grocery store. And I was always, and still am very, very proud of Dorothy Lane Market. But
Yes.
being one of six kids, I was like, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to have my own
Yes.
journey. And I remember my dad actually put an article on on my dresser, and it was an article about a father and daughter. Like, he was in business and he was handing
Oh,
off the business to his daughter. And I remember at the time being like, I'm never going to do that business. Because I was young and I was super independent and I really needed to figure out my own way. I was like that from a very, very young child, but that seed was planted from an early age, and we were always welcome to explore coming into the business. The expectation was at a certain level, and there's a whole even part of that that I think is a journey. I think that when you are a generation within a family business and you're the younger generations, you not only have to enter the business and work really hard, but you have to work harder because you have more to prove why you're there. And I knew all of that. I saw how hard my dad worked, I saw what he built. And at that early age in my life, after graduating from high school, I really wanted to do something different. And I had always been interested in healthcare. So I pursued the route of being a nurse for many years.
you were in nursing for about 25 years, correct? Before you
Yeah.
had any
Yeah.
inklings of changing?
Yeah. I feel like I've lived several lives,
I
which is
feel
kind of a
like,
cool thing for people.
yeah.
You can change at any time. But yeah, that was what I did at the beginning of my career. Was I spent about 25 years in nursing. Yeah.
I think the people with the richest lives too, you rarely see them doing just one thing forever. And I so
Yeah.
appreciate the people who are definitely experts in their field because they've stuck at it. But it's always exciting for me to talk to people who say, like, I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to try something completely new.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to one, are there any aspects of nursing just from the job itself? Probably doing a little less sticking and prodding these days, I'm guessing. But are there elements that you would say that you bring into your work now in a more corporate role?
100%. I learned so much. Well, I had a real passion for taking care of patients
Mm.
and loved learning about people's stories and how I could be of value to them. And even the nursing field itself is very broad. I actually know nurses who are in the nutrition side of food and in this industry. I've met nurses who are utilizing their background that way.
Mm.
And I ended up doing several jobs that were sort of entrepreneurial. I helped put together new programs for some of the companies that I worked for. So it's this real intersection of life, I always say, like everything that I learned through that field. Loved taking care of people, loved building something new, loved being able to affect people's lives, loved learning about the regulatory side of healthcare. There's a lot that's similar. Regulatory side of healthcare and the regulatory side of food, it's a similar language. And so I was able to take all that experience. And that's like a lot of times that's my message for people. You should never have any regret for anything you've ever done in your life because you can gain experience and knowledge from it. And all those things then become this foundation for whatever you build in the future. It's never, oh, I wasted my time doing that. There's never a waste of time because there's something to be learned from it. And for me, a lot of those elements were so critical for me to build before going in and adding any value to my family. I can tell you as a 20-year-old, I wouldn't have been able to add any value. I needed to grow up, I needed to learn, and I needed to learn about how to prioritize other people before myself. And that hard 25 years was a hugely helpful journey to get to the place where I would be able to add value back to my family's business and to our team here.
Yes. And I love that you mentioned too that you needed to go through that before you could just
Mhm.
hop in, because how many times do we say, oh, we love the folks on Forbes 30 under 30, and we're, raising up these really young entrepreneurs and putting the pressure on folks that you have to have it all figured out by certain ages, when it's kind of the opposite, where if you take a little bit of
Yeah.
time and you learn lessons on your own, and in your case too, you had to do challenges that were completely separate from anything you had seen growing up, then you were able to bring that enriched experience back into the role here. So while you were on your nursing journey, the brownie was happening at the same time. The brownie was being born, the ideas were going about here. Tell us a little bit about when the brownie itself was born, and really then when you started to feel that inkling of, hey, I think Killer Brownies should be a totally separate business from Dorothy Lane Market.
Well, that was actually very much my dad's journey. Actually, the brownies started being made in like the late 1970s, early 1980s. So I was actually a kid. So I've been eating these for a long, long time.
Day one.
Yeah.
In addition to the
I
liver
was,
and
I
onions,
was
the brownies.
right. Yeah, seriously, that's my house. Your alfalfa sprouts and salad, followed by your killer brownie. So we grew up eating this product, and the brownies have their own history and journey in Dayton, Ohio. It became a local cult following because there was never anything like that in, especially like grocery retail. And so they were made in one of the bakeries in the 1970s, 1980s. My dad trademarked the name in 1988. And so all of this was growing locally as I was building my own separate life journey in parallel. And then there were other grocery stores who wanted to start carrying the product. So we formed a wholesale business in 2000, which was 13 years before I came in. And it still was relatively small, local, few hundred locations amongst friends. My brother, who's now the CEO of Dorothy Lane Market, he had an idea over 20 some years ago to start this little thing called mail order. So it was way before e-commerce was even a thing for anyone. He's like,
Before
I think we can,
D2C.
before true D2C, he
Yeah.
was like, I think we could sell some of our products online. And 80% of what they sold online was Killer Brownie as a gift, a giftable item. So
Yes.
then people started to see that they could get this product that they'd grown up with sent to their family members. So it's kind of like the early journey. So when I came into the business in 2013, that was already a wholesale business, but we had really talked about, could Killer Brownie become a beloved brand, a beloved national brand, or was it a Dayton, Ohio thing associated with Dorothy Lane Market, which it always is going to have a history, but that was the real question. Could it live on its own? And could
Yes.
we really grow? And there's so many people who had such passion for the product and the story, and it felt like a story that needed to be told. And so I came into the business in 2013 and wrote a proposal and was given a chance by my dad to kind of work really, really hard and learn a lot about the business and see where we could grow this to. So there were a lot of really smart people that came before me that gave me this chance. And then I have my own, I think again, everyone, when you're part of a family business, every generation becomes the founder in a different way.
Yes.
Like you take the story and then it becomes your story and you move it on to whatever the future of that history is. So I have such tremendous respect for what was built before me by my dad and his team. But I had to make this story my own and our team's own to build it for the future. Read a really amazing quote recently about that. Like, never want to abandon what brought us to the table, but how we got here isn't necessarily how we're going to get there. You have to do things different. So it was kind of was probably answered more than what you asked, but I think it's really important for people to know, like, this is it's kind of a 30-year, 40-year startup in a way. It
Yeah.
was this great concept, was a beloved thing locally, but the growth nationally is relatively new. And
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yes. And I think it's also a great story for people to hear, in the sense that, one, heritage is always so important. So it doesn't have to just be the newest, greatest, latest thing. There's something to be said so much about slow, steady, strong foundations that, again, I think only in the last 10 years or so are we bursting the bubble of grow as fast as possible, spend as much money, and it's okay, we'll figure it out later. Even in venture capital, you're seeing people going back to, okay, we really need you to figure things out in an early stage so that this can last a long time. And it is interesting, I want us to talk about brand here in a little bit, but even when you go to the website, you do have little bits of the story and heritage, but it's just so cool and sassy and in your face when you're there right now that feels so modern. So you've figured out how to take, a name. One, Killer Brownies was a great evergreen name too. I like that
Yeah.
when you hear it was made in 1988, you're like, yeah, you could see someone in the late 80s saying killer. Yeah.
Yeah.
But now you
Yeah.
would easily say that.
Yeah.
I want to hear a little bit more about the brownie itself. So, what makes it so special? What flavors do you see today? How did you all figure out we should start layering the different desserts in here versus, say, you take a box mix of brownies home, you get that flat brick, basically. Chocolate is chocolate, but there's not as much substance to it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a totally different textural experience. And what's really beautiful about the original Killer Brownie, which we still make that same recipe today, is the way you could see all of the layers. The original Killer Brownie has about 20 to 25% caramel. So if you love that candy feeling, I always tell people when I would do demos, I would say, think candy bar meets brownie.
Yes.
That's the texture that's
Like
really truly a
gooey.
niche for us. Very gooey. We use that term a lot as we describe what is our niche, what is our brand. It's gooey. We love gooey. And so it started as that original product, that single product, and was doing the original Killer Brownie has pecans in it, and it still does. So then they started seeing, oh, people love this texture, they love the caramel. So the bakery started adding flavors, and my dad adding flavors that kind of built on that. It's really fun to go back over time and see all the different flavors that we've done. But there's now what we call triple chocolate. In the original version we made, when we expanded, we called it Not Another because it was another one, but it didn't have any nuts in it. Fun little name. But I should do trivia someday for all the crazy names we've come up with. But that was take the pecans out, add chocolate chips. So it's a lot more chocolatey. We currently do one called cookie dough. So it's a cookie dough, caramel, has the brownie on the bottom. That's one of our top flavors. We've done blonde versions of it, German chocolate, raspberry. We have a lot of fun flavors currently. Caramel macchiato, which has the notes of coffee and cream. Mexican hot chocolate, which has all these
A
wonderful
little
spices
spice.
and
Oh,
cinnamon and caramel. There's a lot of fun things that we've done over the years, and flavors have come and gone. And then we've also expanded. So we really specialize in all brownies. So we do a traditional brownie, as you think of it, as one that you would make at home, but ours is with the gooey texture,
yes.
high amount of large chocolate inclusions in the inside. It's called our chocolatier. It's our most basic, but also premium gooey on brand. And then we do a lot of other layered product. A brookie is one of our top selling items. It's a brownie and cookie combination without the
Yes.
caramel. Our kitchen sink, which is just what it sounds like, everything but. So there's a lot of fun things. We're very innovative in the brownie space. And brownies for many years were really just almost an afterthought. You think
Right.
about
At the bake
desserts,
sale.
like, right. Yes. So we sort of are taking this overlooked area where people really love, and there's so much nostalgia there, and adding so much variety and innovation to it at scale. And that's what makes us unique. There isn't any other companies in the US that are specializing in gourmet brownies at
Mm.
scale. And actually, if I could just backtrack for a second,
Yeah.
we, since 2019, since really being intentional about growth, since 2019 to 2020, we've grown over 500%. So the majority of our growth has been the last few years.
Wow.
So when I say we have this
So
long,
post COVID, essentially, like right
yeah,
at the incept.
right,
Oh my goodness.
right. And we self-manufacture, so we own our process, which makes it unique. And there were a million people along the way who were like, that's impossible to scale. It's way too
Right.
hard, especially for what we do. That's the great thing about coming from a totally different background. I didn't know all the things I wasn't supposed to be able to do. We didn't know. So we were like, well, we'll figure it out. It's very much our culture and who we are. So we've been able to scale a little bit out of not knowing what we shouldn't do, which was a cool thing. And so that growth has really been over the last few years. And it's intentional, been very, very intentional.
What do you attribute it to? It's such an interesting time to see that growth. And
Yeah.
again, that's going to be another question I have later, especially with what's going on in food trends right now, is what do you think happened during 2019 into 2020 that expedited the growth? And I also want to hear, how do you keep everything so moist and so gourmet in a shelf stable product when you are thinking about scale here?
So I'll answer that first part
Yes.
first. What's happened over the last few years. So it was, again, very intentional. This is the true founder part of the story. At the beginning and in the early stages, you do everything.
All right.
You're the salesperson, you take
Oh,
out the
yeah.
trash, you get on an airplane. And I mean, I was like Googling what's a spec mean because customers were asking me for a spec for the product. I'm like, I don't know what that means. I'll figure it out. I'll Google it. I like
Yeah.
just doing all this crazy stuff. I was in production helping figure out different flavors and what we wanted to do. And you literally do it all. And there was a point where, because this was a different business than the retail grocery business, where I presented, hey, I think we need to build some different foundational positions in this company to really grow. We need to
Yes.
have our own salesperson other than me. And my dad was great. He's like, you can do it all.
You're like,
Like,
I know
I
you did
don't
it all,
think
but let's
that
go big.
right. Yeah. So my husband actually came to work for us in 2017 to run operations. And that was probably one of the first really important hires for the future. He's still our chief operating officer today. And then in 2019, I hired our first salesperson other than me, and he had 20 years of history in sales, and we had worked together. He was actually a customer. And when I talked to him, I said, would you ever come and help us build Killer Brownie? He was very excited about the opportunity. So that was a first critical hire, and so exciting for me to think we have an actual salesperson other than me. And then in that same year, we also hired our own dedicated director of marketing, which we hadn't had before because previously I was utilizing the resources from the family's grocery store with people who maybe had spare time. So we
Right.
really were not even intentionally telling the story. So all that history up until now was just organic love of the product growth and me trying to, I mean, I'll tell you, I ran our Instagram before it was professionally done. We had 300 followers and now we have 135,000. So it was like, we don't want
So
me to
long
do
to
that.
grow.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So those were the first really important hires were those three operations and thinking about the future, and then sales and marketing. And then at that point in 2019, 2020, we redid our brand, did a rebrand. It was the first that really made an impact. We invested in some really beautiful storytelling around the product, and we wrote a vision and mission for what we wanted to be. So I think that's why I say being intentional, because you have a great product and a great idea, but it's going to stop there if you're not intentional about how you want to build and you get it out and on paper, and then build a smart team around you to help you with it, even if you can't do it all at once. Yeah, I think that's when we really saw a difference. And that's the part of the story I would definitely want people to hear if they're thinking about doing something like this is,
Yes.
first of all, you can't do it by yourself forever. Forget it. I mean, you will at the beginning, but as soon as you can get help, getting help and making sure that those initial hires are people that can help you build a business for sure.
Yeah. And talk to us a little bit about, I want to focus on the brand a little bit more here. How would you describe the brand previous to the rebrand?
So previous to the 2019 rebrand, and then we did another rebrand in 2025. So a
I love
year
it. You
ago.
just keep evolving. You're just on this
Yeah.
evolution.
It's funny. Like the first rebrand was really all about the product and the product story. We did a lot more B2B marketing because we were wanting to, again, this was a journey that where I was learning too. We were
Yeah.
wanting to connect on B2B level. So we wanted to get in front of buyers and decision makers, which is really, really important. I think at that time we weren't focusing as much on the consumer experience, like telling the consumer the story, because you can get your product into a retailer, but if the consumer doesn't know who you are uh, and they can't find you, it ends there. You get a
Right.
first purchase order and then that's it. But we needed to do that initially to tell our story and become trusted in the industry. And so that was our first rebrand. And then the second rebrand that we did a year or so ago, I felt like it went back to the original roots of who my dad was, my family was, and the name Killer Brownie. It's a little bit more like that edgy,
Yes.
break the rules. And even the logo, the original logo my dad drew, like it was a old, it looked like a little, I don't know, sort of mountain killer, like the name Killer. And our logo now, it's hand drawn or hand painted, I should say. It's a little edgy and it's so much closer to the roots and just who we
Mm,
are. As a company, we're like fun loving, take chances and risks and live a little. That's very much true to who we are. And this rebrand feels like we're bringing it home. Like we've been here all along. And now this is the story that we're really going to tell. And so it feels more authentic to who we've always been. And the product is still the same. We still make these great gourmet brownies. We still make beautiful products. We're never going to abandon that. But now it feels like the brand story is closer to the actual story really is.
yes. And it speaks so much more character to the consumer because, again, gourmet products, it's high end, but you're not positioning yourself as, oh, this is your luxury product and you can only have it at certain times and it's only for a certain kind of person. Yours feels a lot more messy and accessible. When you go on the site, I love the video of the two women in their fur jackets in the
Yeah.
bodega just tearing it up and just
Yeah.
having the best time. And it kind of feels, I love how then you focused on here's what you're going to feel like when you have this brownie, not
Yeah.
just, oh, this is a lovely product and here are the features of it, but here's the whole experience we're going to get behind it. So it
Yeah.
clearly worked because, again, 500% in just a few years is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like we're connecting in a whole new way to the consumer, which is really exciting. But even the Live a Little tagline,
Yeah.
the team that was so marketing team, a few really smart people were ideating and they would bring us like different ideas. So it was a whole process as we were thinking about how to tell the story different. And when they revealed that tagline, I got super emotional because as I was telling you about my dad
Yeah.
was over here sneaking us Oreos as my mom was making us
Little.
liver. He would say to us, sometimes you got to live a little. And I was like, did they know
They,
that?
I was going to say, did they had no
They
idea then?
never knew that. And so when I called my dad and I said, you're not going to believe what our new tagline is, he was actually more like, oh, hey, that was our thing. And I was like, no, but this is the
I feel
story. I
like it
love it.
works.
He was really humble about me sharing that. But I was like,
Oh,
no, dad, like, that's it. That's the story. And it was, again, very emotional for me because I felt like it was like this life journey all coming together in a way that it should, which was really,
yes.
really cool. And it's really fun to see what our marketing team is doing right now and telling the story and where we're showing up. Again, it feels super authentic and it's fun for me to get a chance to talk about it.
Yes. Talk to us a little bit more about how you're reaching new audience members and customers. Continue to tell us a little bit more about that positioning for your storytelling. What do you think are some of the storytelling secret ingredients you all have?
Yeah, I think again, being authentic and being intentional. And I will say again, you'll hear me say this frequently, but getting the right people to help. And so we've built a really great smart marketing team and fantastic marketing director that's doing a great job and just really pulling out what is that story and where do we want to show up and how do we want Live a Little to feel to people. And it's like showing up in places, you're going to see us showing up in places where that maybe traditionally people don't think of as, might be like outside of a DMV or something like, hey, like you can still feel great when you're like at some place you
Uh,
don't traditionally think of as, like maybe that moment was stressful, but you can still live a little like, hey, have this treat in your life. And just really connecting with people and building community and how important that is because honestly that's how the brand grew authentically in the early days was it was part of this community and just building more on that community and taking that community feeling and moving it and growing it nationally. So you'll see us do a lot of partnering with other brands that are telling that similar story. So you're going to see more and more of that coming. And then now being a part of Irresistible Foods Group, which I think we'll probably talk about that, but
yes.
being a part of the sales team and they have a really good system for showing up in store and partnering with the retailers so the consumer can find you, doing a little bit more push ads, things like that, where people can find you on their app and showing up on Instacart. And people have been looking for us for years. And so now to be able to say, hey, here's the easier way to find us, and working with, again, sales and then also marketing to be able to make us more accessible is a really, really cool thing because there's a lot of people that started in Dayton and spread it and moved across the country. And it's really cool to see these super fans now have accessibility and being able to, again, grow that community in other intentional markets as well. Um,
Yes. How do you think you're weaving Ohio instinctively into the storytelling itself? Because my friends say on the coasts, they would not sit here and go, oh, Ohio, rebellious, you know,
that is hilarious.
outside the box. But, and then if you think
Yeah.
dessert, you're just kind of thinking Buckeyes immediately, right? So, how
Yeah.
have you focused on the Killer Brownie being like, no, we are the true blue dessert of Ohio that you should be looking out for?
Well, telling our story and our roots is on our website. We'll always tie ourselves back to home, and some
Yeah.
really great things come from Ohio. And actually, even on the manufacturing side, most people don't know this, but Ohio is one of the top 6 states for manufacturing in the US. It's very supportive for food brands and manufacturing, and being in the center of the country, you have accessibility to all of the great vendors and resources and ingredient resources. So it's a really great spot to be, just even from the physicality. But yeah, and to your point, like all these great stories come out of Ohio. I mean, Dayton's the birthplace of aviation. So we have all these cool stories locally when it comes to innovation and even technology, and obviously great food. So yeah, a Buckeye is a great thing. If you've never had one, people need to buy them. We actually make a version of a Buckeye brownie.
As you should. I was going to
Yeah.
say it's a great combo. Who doesn't love the peanut butter and chocolate?
Right, exactly. But yeah, that's always going to be part of who we are, is our roots in the Midwest. And I think introducing people to something that has such a fan following and that people can make part of their community is a really cool thing. And we are coast to coast now and north to south. So it's cool to see that growing. People love our product in New York and they love our product in California. Those are some of our biggest markets. So it's exciting to see that.
That is, and I love how we're this quote unquote third coast, other coast in the middle, and sharing the stories of the Midwest is always so special to me and important because it is. It's like we're not quote unquote flyover country. It's not just cows everywhere. We do have plenty of cows and corn coming from a family with a corn and soybeans farm, but there's just so much more here. And I think highlighting, especially our smaller cities too, just shows like there's a lot that you can find, not just in the biggest places. And they can have the biggest impact, though.
Yeah, and it's great to be able to build a business and a brand from here and be able to share it locally with people who are from here and they feel really proud, Dayton proud,
Yes.
Ohio proud. And I think that's always going to be a part of our roots. And people love that story. I mean, I
Yeah.
know brands that I follow, I want to know their story. I want to know why. And I think that that's an important part of us being authentic to our consumers.
Yes, I agree. And it's especially, gosh, in the last 10 or 15 years, too. Like, I want to put my money behind stories and people that I think are great and not just always what's most convenient or just because everyone else is doing it. So it's a big way to really shift things, too.
Yeah.
So, speaking of, I mean, we are in a time, the pendulum has swung very hard towards a health focus right now when it comes to food trends. So, everything's proteinized. We're focusing on fiber. Our good friend, Jenny has got her Flora bars
Yeah.
from Ohio
Those
here.
are
And
awesome. Yeah.
amazing. Like the fact that you can, again, do both. She can do ice cream and she can do fiber
Yeah.
bars. And so we're all focused on like how many macros we're getting basically. When you've also got this really balanced background yourself, how are you feeling that Killer Brownies is staying really strong in its identity as just like, this is a delicious treat. You're allowed to live a little, you're allowed to have treats. And do you ever feel swayed of like, hey, should we be adding something in or should we be changing our labeling so that people can see any certain nutritional benefits here?
Well, first of all, there's always going to be a place for treats in our life.
Yes.
And again, it goes back to that at every memorable occasion in our lives is tied to some sort of treat, probably, or food occasion. I think it's important for us to always be listening to what the consumer is asking for and what's happening. I don't think we should ever be ignorant of that. But at the same time, overall, we know who we are, and we're going to continue to focus on what the consumer wants and what we believe in. And actually, over the last 12 years, we've been quietly making sure to clean up our ingredient list. We've never even really talked about it. We started
Yeah.
in 2013, 2014. We don't have any preservatives. We're actually in the fresh space. So we're not technically the shelf stable center
Oh,
store. We're in the
okay.
fresh space because we
That's
don't have
wonderful.
preservatives. So our supply chain is frozen, which is the preservative, and then it's thawed and sold our shelf life after thaw is 7 to 14 days. So it's actually considered a fresh
Quite
experience.
fresh. Yes.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
So, yeah. And I think as we're never going to compromise the taste and the experience, though, ever, in order to be able to add some ingredient that maybe feels like it's a trend. We actually played with adding protein at a
Yes.
certain point because so completely changes the taste. It wasn't who we were, and that's not who we are. And I think if you're chasing trends and trying to be everything to everyone, then you're nothing. Then you're no longer that thing to anyone, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
you become, I think, almost diluted. So distraction can lead to dilution. And I think that if we know who we are, we make a killer dessert and we're proud of it. It's unapologetic. But at the same time, we love being able to create great products that are also clean. We approach product development, and our first question is, can it be made clean and also be a great eating experience and also a great treat? We're not 100% clean. We use some candy in our product
Sugar.
because it's
Yes.
sentimental. Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, we are a dessert, and that's
Yes.
okay. But there's a lot of really great ingredients and a lot of companies now that are providing ingredients that are also considered. They don't have artificial color or flavor, and you still have a great
Yes.
eating experience. So if we're able to do it, we will. But again, we don't necessarily say that that's what our brand is. We're just doing it because it's what we want to do. Our brand is a killer treat, a
Yes.
memorable dessert that's unapologetic, that we think people deserve to have those moments. If you're going to have a moment where you want to treat yourself, it better be good. And
Yes.
that's how we feel. Like we'll never walk away from what the product experience is meant to be. It's really part of our core commitment. But again, we'll always be aware of what's happening around us and we're always going to do the right thing.
Yeah. I appreciate that you even saw it and were like, let's give it a try. Let's just see. And he said, no, this does not have to be a 30-gram protein
Yeah.
brownie. There are protein bars out there. There are protein
Mhm.
brownies probably out there. But you said, no,
Yeah.
that's going to really damage the integrity of the product. And instead of just saying, well, everyone else is doing it, we should do it too. And I think that's where you're going to continue to see just longevity and folks saying, I know exactly what I'm getting.
Yeah.
Even if it is updated partnerships or, new flavors or something limited edition, they know what they're coming for killer brownies.
Yeah, it's interesting. We actually have a consumer panel, and a lot of them are people that have been
Of
super
course.
fans for a long time. Would you like to join the brownie board? That's an actual thing.
So I have a nut allergy. If I can join and have the nut-free ones, I would happily do it.
We will sign you up for sure.
Thank you.
But it's interesting as we've tested various products and we take that feedback. I remember someone's comment said, this is a great product, but it's not killer. And I was like, that to me was so cool because it showed me that the consumer knows who we are.
Yes.
And they knew by telling us that we would know what that meant. And this feedback is so great because it helps us to make sure that we're always aligning with what the expectation is for our
Yes.
product, which is really cool.
Oh my gosh, that is so great. Speaking of sticking true to yourself, which I think has been such an amazing through line as well for the entire company story and your own, is about 2 years ago now, you had a very large stake in the company acquired by Irresistible Food Group. So this was a major acquisition moment for you all here. What made you decide that this was the right time to have a partner like that come in? And what made you then feel confident that you'd be able to continue the Killer Brownies brand as it is in the way that feels good to you? Because you hear those stories sometimes of, say, PE comes in, someone takes over a restaurant or even, and then everything changes because they're focused, say, on costs or something along those lines. So, what
Yeah.
made you feel good about IFG and why they were the right partners to go with?
We weren't looking for a partner and we weren't looking to make an exit or anything like that. We wanted to grow. And with the family and the people behind Irresistible Foods Group were people that we knew in the industry, and we heard about what they were building, and we loved it. We loved the thought that they would get behind brands and help build them for 100 years, which is really the vision. It's not to invest in flip, which very often can be a very open part of the process, but they were looking to invest in people and invest in brands and grow them. And they're very strict around their criteria, and it's around the culture of what's being built, something that's unique and in really the perimeter of fresh space. And so that story resonated with us and our family. And we were like, this makes sense that we partner. And what they would be able to bring to the table was accelerated growth through their sales team, and then obviously resources for growth. And so that was really what we were drawn to. And then it would allow my family to continue to focus on the retail stores, and then myself and my husband to continue to grow Killer Brownie alongside the IFG team. So I think that's really what was drawn. Again, the values is that of them as a company. And then the other really important thing is that they would keep the brand independent. And
That's great.
we report to a board, but they do not come in and tell us anything about
Yeah.
operating the company, even the product. I mean, they love eating the product in meetings like all of us do, but they haven't at all reached in to say, hey, you should change the way the product is. Actually, every conversation is around, we're never going to change the quality of the product. And so I can say now, almost 2 years into this relationship, that that's been very true, that they've not wanted to touch or change anything about the product or even who we are. It's a very respectful relationship and supportive. And, I think for me personally, I'm at a later point in my life. And I also think a responsible thing for me to do for Killer Brownie is to build just a strong future story and a strong succession plan, whether it be for myself or any leader that's part of this company. But I think I feel a lot of support being a part of IFG and what we're building. So that's why it made sense, because it became the resources to really protect the brand as the brand grow. And that's not usually typical in a merger like that or in a partnership like that or in a typical private equity. But we've also learned a lot. Like, they brought so much value to us from leadership and the way to run the business. And we've grown up a lot. I've changed a lot over the last couple of years, and it's all been for the good. So, I mean, it's been a really great way to grow the business for the future.
You're setting up the legacy. And almost this whole time we've been talking, you've had these moments where, you're talking about gourmet product and fun names and like a real community behind them. And your story went down a path that's worked out for the best. And I was thinking about Ben and Jerry's and Unilever and just this legacy and this beautiful product. And then a founder feeling like they had to step away because they felt it was going to be compromised. And so I'm so glad that you've had the opposite of that journey where you feel really supported and like this can just keep going as it has been, as your dad's original vision.
Yeah. The family behind IFG is the Tyra family. And they
Ah,
are a third generation family that runs King's Hawaiian. They're still fully owned. King's Hawaiian is still family
oh
owned.
my gosh.
And they just have such a great family story. And they're so tied to their community. Philanthropy is a very important part of their values. That family cares very much about how we treat our employees. And so to be tied to a family that has values like that really makes me feel good about what the future is. With or without me and Killer Brownie, it just makes me feel like everyone's in really good hands. So that, that I think goes a long way, knowing that we all align in that way.
Yes, definitely. So speaking about, you talked about protecting the brand. Talk about how you protect yourself a little bit. I mean, you have a team now. You've got even more of a team with IFG, but you're still so involved. You wear so many hats internally. What do you like to do to fill your cup? What is something that you like to do, especially you and your husband, I imagine? Because again, you're co-founders in life, basically.
Yeah.
You're partners, but you're also working together. What are you doing on your off time?
I have to say, I love what I do so much. It's hard for me to turn it off. And I think
I
when you
could see
have a
that.
passion,
Yeah.
and I could think and talk about this all the time, probably not my husband, but I mean, I just love what I do because it's
Yeah.
so fun to connect to people this way.
Yes.
Even in the hard times, like, so few people get to say that they got to do this in their life. And we get to say that. And so it's hard for me to turn that off. That said, I do prioritize my health. My husband and I have our own little gym in our house. We work out every morning. We spend time together quietly in the morning, just talking about life. We protect that early morning space. We get up at 5 in the morning, and that's kind of our time before we
Yeah.
come in. So we do that. We love to travel. And we have a goal of going to all 7 continents within 4 years.
Oh my
We
gosh.
just this past December went to our 5th continent, which was Antarctica, the most unbelievable experience in the world. I did manage to disconnect for a couple of weeks, which is unheard
Yes.
of for me.
You literally can't reach you in Antarctica.
Yeah, that literally helped. Yeah, that's what it
Oh
takes
my
apparently. I have
goodness.
to go to a pole, like a North or South Pole to disconnect.
Right.
But it was so amazing. And just like the earth is such a beautiful place. Like we love being able to get out and meet people from all over the world and see different parts of the earth. And it's not that we're doing that every month or all the time, but thinking and planning and looking forward to those trips helps us to disconnect a little bit. And so we've been fortunate enough to be able to do that, which is really, really cool. But honestly, and family, I mean,
Yeah.
spending time with our kids, where all of our kids are grown and married now, and they live in different parts of the country. Our daughter lives locally, and just spending time with our kids. Doesn't always have to be the big, huge trips, although it's really cool that we got to do that. But we just disconnect in those really simple ways. Like my morning coffee, if I can't have my morning coffee, I'm not coming to work.
No one talk to Chimene.
Right. Just the little simple things.
Right. Agreed. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. And again, Antarctica must be incredible. I have a friend who went
Amazing.
and the pictures were just insane. And you can't even think about just the silence that is
Yeah.
so prevalent. It just
Yeah.
must be so peaceful.
It's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. I
Oh,
will say we did bring brownies and we did give them to the expedition team.
were they like,
They
look at
loved
Killer
it.
Brownies
So
being at the
fun.
furthest
I
south they've ever
know.
been in the world?
Right. Yeah.
That is, oh my gosh.
Wonderful.
I mean, just picture that. Like, those are the types of photos you actually need to print out and keep in the scrapbook of where do you see killer brownies.
Right. Exactly.
Oh,
That was fun.
Shaman, last few questions here. This has been incredible. You have a lot to be proud of, but what would you say you're most proud of? And how do you want to continue to grow? What do you think is really next in the journey?
I think I'm most proud of what we've built as a team. And I mean, I'm so proud. Obviously, the product has to be great. You have to have something that people want to come back home or come back to. But it's so rewarding to build something together and to be
Yes.
able to have this team of people that have worked so hard and to be able to create a place that people love to work. It's really, there's a lot of joy here. We make a really great product, but man, there's so much fun here. There's just so much joy. And I'm really proud that I could be a part of that journey in people's lives. And I think for me, I want to continue to learn for as long as I can in life. I probably read 20 books a year, and I highly recommend as people are growing and learning that they do that. And I think it's really important to be a lifelong learner because I haven't figured out how to do everything perfectly, and I never will. But I've just learned so much from other founders. I've like a list of my favorite books from what other people have done and learned from them and learn from other leaders and continue to grow. And I encourage all of our team to do that and people in general. Like you learn in school and then you learn in life. And it's just
Yes.
continuing to be on a educational lifelong learning is really, really important. I'm going to continue to do that. And I think for me personally, one day I really want to be able to give back. I think we do that now, but I want to be able to give back in 2 areas specifically. And I think one, I have a unique perspective in being a 3rd generation from a family. So for generations to come, for families that have been founders, I think I have a unique perspective on that. And the other is being a female founder.
Yes.
I think that I would love to be able to advise young female leaders. I think that would be really powerful for me. And I would love to be able to give back in that way. So I see myself moving more into an advisory role as I get into the later years of my life.
Yeah. And I think this episode alone, you're already reaching part of that goal. You're going to
Yes,
reach folks who are
thank
really
you.
inspired. Yes. And
Thank you for giving me that opportunity. Yeah.
oh, thank you for the opportunity. This has been so nice. And people are going to be lining up even more for the brownies here. What is one piece of advice that you'd want to give anyone starting something new on their own, whether it's within the food and bev space or anything else entrepreneurial?
I would say start with a purpose. Know why you're doing it, whether it's for health reason, personal reason, know why you are doing it. And it is never just about money. When it is, it usually doesn't last. That can't be your reason. You might see a young person say, I want to start something because I want to make a lot of money.
Right.
That usually doesn't even last for them. But it's start with your purpose, write it down, and then be prepared to work a lot. If something is really worth it, you're going to have to put a lot of energy into it. But stay true to your purpose and your why. And it's only then that I think you can really build something special.
And agreed. If you want to make money, you do not go into entrepreneurialism, food and bev, or journalism. Any of these, which is all of my passions.
Right.
But again, like I talk to you and I see just your natural happiness and your natural peace. And that does not
Yeah.
come from folks who are just chasing the dollar because nothing is guaranteed. And
Mhm.
especially with the world is a wacky place, you do not know what's coming next. So
Yeah.
do not put all of your eggs in the Gordon Gecko green basket.
Right. That's great.
Oh my. So, Chimene, we're here. I always love this question, but I get sad because that means we're at the end here. A little reminder
Aw.
to folks, this is called the perfect bite, not only because it's a perfect bite of our folks across the value chain of food and bev, but because we all have our own perfect bites. So a recipe, a memory, something you've eaten that every time you think about it, it will make you smile. So, Chimene, what is your perfect bite?
Well, I have to tell you, that's such a great question.
Oh, thank
I
you.
love that you add that in the end. It's so cool. And mine is going to sound really silly, but it's a bowl of popcorn because
Ooh.
a memory as a child is on the weekends, we would watch a movie and my mom would pop a big, huge bowl of popcorn, and all of us kids would pile on the couch and we would eat popcorn. And we continued that tradition in our family. We would have movie night and we would pop a big, huge bowl of popcorn. And it seems like such a thing, but for me, it's just like home.
Yes. Are you like a salty popcorn person? Do you like a little butter or are you just
No
pure?
butter.
Nothing.
Just, well,
Maybe
salty.
maybe a little
Salt
salt.
popcorn.
And
And
I
the real
like
thing, like you have to cook it on the stove.
yeah, the real kernels.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and I think that and I love that. Again, salty is always going to go with sweet. So you can pair a killer brownie easily with that.
Exactly. Maybe we'll have a popcorn brownie. I feel like I need to
Wait, write this down.
Right.
You heard it here first.
Right. Right.
Because again, think of like caramel and popcorn and I would yes.
No.
Yes, done.
Hey, I'll
That
name
sounds
it after
amazing.
you. Yeah.
That is so sweet. We'll call it the perfect brownie.
Yeah. Right.
Oh,
That's great.
thank you again so much, Chimene. Can you let folks know where to find Killer Brownies? So the social accounts, website, and then general retailers so that they can get their hands and their teeth on this right now.
Yeah. So you can head to our socials at Killer Brownie on Instagram and TikTok, and then as well as our Facebook. And then you can go to our website, killerbrownie.com, and you can actually order direct to consumer from our website. And then you can also, right at the top is a store locator. So you can put your zip code in and see who carries the product locally for you. And we are coast to coast in select Targets. We're in Food Lion. We are in select Kroger. We're again, coast to coast. We're in Harris Teeter, Mariano's, and several stores here in the Midwest as well. But yeah, put your zip code in and you're bound to find someone that's close to you.
Yes. Oh, can't wait. I'll have to figure out how to join the brownie board. Chimene, thank you again so much for joining us. And thank you everyone for listening in. This was Chimene Mayne-Ross's Perfect Bite.
Thanks for tuning in to The Perfect Bite today. You can listen to future episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Thanks in advance for subscribing, rating, and reviewing. You can follow The Perfect Bite on social media at Perfect Bite Pod. Now go get something good to eat.